Hello and welcome to the Lex-Praxis channel. In today's video, I'll be walking you through the procedures and the requirements for obtaining a money lending license in Nigeria. Now, money lending is a very critical component of every nation's economy, but interestingly, in Nigeria, most Nigerians do not have access to credit facilities, and this is where private lending comes into play. So if you are looking to venture into the money lending space, it's actually a very promising space, but also it is also highly regulated, and that is why for the purpose of this video, I will be walking you through the processes, the procedures, and the requirements for obtaining a money lending license in Nigeria. Now, what or who is a money lender in Nigeria? A money lender is defined by the law as any person or business or any person whose business is that of lending money at an interest, or who advertises or holds himself out as carrying on that business. Now, from this definition, it's a little bit broad in the sense that it includes if you are an individual who is in that business or holding yourself out as someone who lends money for interest, or you're a company, you qualify as a money lender. However, there are certain exemptions in this definition. For instance, there are certain institutions or financial institutions that do not fall under this money lending category, even though they provide lending facilities. For instance, the commercial banks, insurance companies, even cooperative societies, they do not fall under this category. Why? This is because they are already regulated by other agencies. For instance, the commercial banks that are also into the business of lending are already protected or governed by the Central Bank of Nigeria. The cooperative societies also offer lending activities, or they provide lending services, and they are already governed by the Cooperative Societies Act. You also have the insurance companies that are also regulated as well. So by reason of that, these financial institutions cannot fall under this definition of who a money lender is. I hope you get that picture, right? Now, we'll be talking about the legal requirements for obtaining a money lending license. Now, generally speaking, the procedure or the requirements, it varies from state to state. However, from our experience, we have discovered that there are actually certain similarities when it comes to the requirements, and that is what we'll be dwelling on for the purpose of this video. In the previous video in this channel, one of our associates shared tips on how to obtain a money lending license in Cross River State. You can check the channel, the videos in this channel, and just watch that, or we'll leave the link in the description section of the video for your future reference. However, for this video, we will just highlight on the areas that are quite similar. And then if you have intentions of obtaining a license in a particular state and you need us to help you with that, you can feel free to reach out to us in the contact information that will be displayed towards the end of this video. Now, let's get back to the requirements, right? So the first one is that you need to provide your incorporation documents, right? What that means then is that if you want to provide this service as a business entity, you need to provide your incorporation documents, which includes your certificate of registration, your status report, and your memorandum and articles of association. So that business must be a registered entity with the Corporate Affairs Commission. The next requirement, which is very common and familiar across all states in Nigeria, is that you must provide a police clearance certificate. The directors of that company or business must provide a police clearance certificate or cited. Also, the directors and promoters of that company are also required to provide their individual tax clearance certificates, and also the company is required to provide a reference letter from a recognized commercial bank. Also, there has to be evidence of an office address. Of course, this is to confirm to the licensing authority that you are actually operating as a going concern. Now, what are the procedures for obtaining a money lending license in Nigeria? Now, generally speaking, the procedure entails two stages. The first stage is obtaining a money lender certificate from the magistrate. This is a very common procedure across all states. So, once the magistrate of the court is able to verify and ascertain that you are qualified to carry out the service or the business of money lending, a money lending certificate will be issued to you. Now, after receiving or upon receiving the money lending certificate, the next step is to obtain the money lending license from the designated authority in the state. Now, why did we say that? Because in different states, there are different authorities that are assigned by the government of the state to handle the issuance of a money lending license. In some states, it could be the Ministry of Home Affairs. In some other states, it could be any other agency. And so the agency varies from state to state. So, but we just know that the stages are the same. You have to first obtain the certificate and then the license from the issuing authority. I hope that is clear. Now, for the purpose of those who are intending to go into digital lending, it's important that you are aware of the role that the FCCPC plays in the service or the business of digital lending. Of course, you are aware of the recent trend that took place a few years ago, especially amongst digital lending platforms, where lenders take loans from these apps, and then somehow these apps or these companies get access to the lender's contact list, and then when there is a default or whether there is a technical glitch, you just see these lending platforms sending strange, threatening and scary messages to people who are ideally not even supposed to be aware of the transaction in the first place. Now, it was as a result of this abuse of these transactions, illegal ways of recovering loans, and even breach of data privacy, that the FCCPC came into play. Now, the FCCPC is the Federal Competition and Consumer Protection Commission, right? This is why they came into the picture to regulate this abuse in the digital lending space. And so it has become mandatory for those that intend to offer this service digitally. It's mandatory that you are registered with the FCCPC. This makes your transaction and process clear to the regulating authority. They have a clear picture as to the strategy and your process of recovering these loans, and also to ensure that the privacy of the people who use your platform, your digital lending platforms, are actually protected as well, right? So you should take note of that as well. Now, I'll say this generally, when it comes to the licensing space, there are many other considerations, but for the purpose of this video, the aim is to just emphasize the importance of licensing for those venturing into the digital lending space, right? There are a lot of considerations to take note of depending on how peculiar or the scope of your services in the digital lending space. Now, why is licensing important? Generally speaking, the courts and the law has made it clear that in a situation where a money lender or someone who portrays or carries himself out as a money lender fails to be licensed, and in the event that there is a breach of a loan agreement during your transactions, you cannot come before the court to enforce that loan agreement if you are not a licensed money lender. In other words, failure to license means you will not be able to enforce a loan agreement where your lender or the borrower is in breach of the terms of the loan agreement. So this is one of the very important reasons why you need to be licensed. Otherwise, it puts your business at risk, especially in terms of covering security or addressing the area of security, obtaining security for your loan or lending transactions. Now, in summary, it is clear that the digital or the money lending space, whether digital or beyond digital, offline, right, is highly regulated. Depending on however you want to provide that service and the scope of your service, you need to factor in licensing in the picture before launching out or before operating operating in digital lending space. I hope you gained value from this video. And like I said earlier, if you need to speak with a professional or a legal consultant to walk you through the procedures or the considerations for launching into the lending space legally and to avoid any form of harassment from regulators, whether as a foreign investor or even a Nigerian who intends to launch a lending business in Nigeria, feel free to reach out to us through the contact information that is displayed on the screen, and we'll be delighted to speak with you.